The burning sky. The night sky over New York City erupted in a dazzling display of otherworldly colors. Streams of violet, emerald, and crimson danced across the heavens, outshining even the brightest city lights. At first, onlookers marveled at the spectacle, their faces bathed in the ethereal glow as they pointed their smartphones skyward. But wonder soon gave way to unease as the aurora intensified, spreading across the globe with unnatural speed. Dr. Sarah Chen, a 32-year-old astrophysicist at the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico, frowned at her computer screen. The incoming data made no sense. The aurora's radiation signature defied known physics, and its rapid expansion suggested an artificial origin. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, cross-referencing the phenomenon with every known celestial event in the database. "This can't be right," she muttered, pushing her glasses up her nose. "The energy output is off the charts." As if in response to her bewilderment, every screen in the observatory flickered and went dark. Panicked voices rose around her as her colleagues scrambled to reboot their systems. Sarah's heart raced as she tried to salvage her data, but before she could act, the screens came back to life. What she saw made her blood run cold. Staring back at her was not the familiar desktop interface, but the face of something undeniably alien. Its skin was a mosaic of iridescent scales, its eyes black voids that seemed to absorb light. Multiple mandibles clicked rhythmically around a circular maw. "People of Earth," the creature's voice boomed through speakers worldwide, its words translated into every major language simultaneously. "We are the Pyrox, and we have come to claim what is rightfully ours." In Times Square, crowds gathered around the massive displays, their faces a mixture of fear and disbelief. Similar scenes played out in city centers across the globe, from the neon-lit streets of Tokyo to the bustling markets of Lagos. The alien continued, its voice a grating metallic screech that sent shivers down human spines. "Your planet sits upon resources vital to our species' survival. We have traveled across the galaxy to harvest them. Your choices are simple: surrender and be relocated, or resist and be eradicated." A chorus of gasps and cries erupted from the crowds. In the White House Situation Room, the President of the United States gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. "Get me verification on this transmission," she barked. "And someone tell me how the hell they're broadcasting on every frequency simultaneously." Back in Arecibo, Sarah's mind raced. The aurora, the energy readings, the global broadcast, it all pointed to a level of technology far beyond human capabilities. But something nagged at her. The pattern in the aurora, there was a familiarity to it that she couldn't quite place. The alien's final words snapped her back to attention. "You have 30 of your Earth days to make your decision. When we return, prepare for your worlds to burn." As quickly as it had appeared, the transmission cut out. Screens around the world returned to their normal displays, leaving billions in stunned silence. The silence didn't last long. Panic erupted across the globe. Stock markets crashed within minutes. Religious leaders called for prayer and repentance. Conspiracy theorists crowed vindication from every corner of the internet. In major cities, looting and riots broke out as people fled or sought to stockpile supplies. At the United Nations headquarters in New York, an emergency session was hastily convened. Representatives from every nation argued fiercely about the best course of action. Some advocated for immediate surrender to save lives. Others called for a show of military strength. A few even suggested the entire event was an elaborate hoax. Amidst the chaos, a select group of scientists, military strategists, and world leaders gathered in a secure underground facility. Their mission: to analyze the alien threat and formulate humanity's response. Dr. Chen found herself unexpectedly thrust into this group. Her insights on the aurora phenomenon had caught the attention of top officials. As she presented her findings, the gravity of the situation weighed heavily on her. The energy output of their cloaking technology, if that's indeed what the aurora is, suggests a level of power generation we can't even comprehend. She explained, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. But there's something odd about the radiation pattern. It's familiar somehow, like an echo of something I've seen before. General Miranda Vega, a decorated veteran with a reputation for unorthodox strategies, leaned forward. Could it be a weakness we can exploit? Sarah hesitated. Possibly. But I'd need more data to be sure. Data we don't have, the UN Secretary General interjected grimly. And time we can't afford to waste. As the debate raged on, Sarah's mind wandered to her family. Her parents in San Francisco, her sister in London. Were they safe? The thought of losing them to an alien invasion seemed absurd, like something out of the sci-fi novels she devoured as a child. Yet here she was, humanity's fate potentially resting on her ability to decipher an alien-like show. Meanwhile, in low Earth orbit, the crew of the International Space Station found themselves on the front lines of the impending invasion. Commander Yuki Tanaka peered out of the cupola, her experienced eyes scanning for any sign of the alien fleet. "There!" exclaimed her crewmate, Dr. Alejandro Reyes, pointing to a shimmer in the distance. "Do you see it?" Yuki nodded grimly. Through high-powered binoculars, they could just make out the outline of massive ships, their hulls seeming to bend light around them. The vessels dwarfed anything humanity had ever put in space. "We need to warn Earth," Yuki said, her voice tight with urgency. "They're not just at the edge of the solar system. They're right on our doorstep." But as they turned to transmit their findings, the station's systems went haywire. Alarms blared as instruments detected a massive energy surge heading their way. "Brace for impact," Yuki shouted, but her words were drowned out by the sound of rending metal. The energy wave from the Pyrox fleet tore through the station like tissue paper. In their last moments, the crew managed to send a burst transmission to Earth, sacrificing themselves to provide crucial intelligence. As news of the space station's destruction spread, the last embers of doubt were extinguished. This was no hoax, no misunderstanding. Humanity was at war. In the depths of the Pentagon, General Vega slammed her fist on the table. "We need to strike now, while we still can." "With what?" countered the Chinese military attaché. "Our most advanced weapons are children's toys compared to their technology." As the argument escalated, Dr. Chen sat quietly, her mind racing. The familiar pattern in the aurora, the energy signature that destroyed the ISS, pieces of a cosmic puzzle were starting to fall into place. She stood abruptly, drawing all eyes to her. "I think I know where we need to start," she said, her voice filled with a determination that surprised even her. "But we're going to need resources, and we're going to need to work fast." The room fell silent, a mixture of hope and skepticism on every face. Sarah took a deep breath. What she was about to propose was radical, possibly insane. But with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance, insanity might be their only hope. "We need to fight fire with fire," she said, "or in this case, light with light. I believe we can turn their own technology against them. But to do it, we're going to have to rewrite the laws of physics as we know them." As the implications of her words sank in, a spark of hope flickered in the room. It wasn't much. Humanity was still vastly outgunned and running out of time. But it was a start. Outside, the alien aurora continued to paint the sky in otherworldly hues. 30 days suddenly seemed like both an eternity and no time at all. In homes and bunkers, in labs and war rooms, humanity steeled itself for the fight of its life. The burning sky was just the beginning. The real inferno was yet to come. Whispers of hope. The vast underground facility buzzed with frenetic energy. Screens flickered with data streams. Holographic projections of alien ships hovered in the air, and the rapid-fire clicking of keyboards provided a constant backdrop. At the center of this technological maelstrom stood Dr. Sarah Chen, her eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep, but burning with intensity. "There," she exclaimed, pointing to a series of complex equations hovering before her. "The aurora isn't just a byproduct of their cloaking technology. It's the key to how they're bending light around their ships. General Miranda Vega leaned in, her brow furrowed. Can you weaponize it? Sarah shook her head. Not directly. But if we can replicate the frequency, we might be able to disrupt their cloaking. Make them visible. A gruff voice cut through the excitement. Fat lot of good that'll do us if we can't hurt 'em once we see 'em. Heads turned to see Colonel Jack Harper, a disheveled man in his late 40s, stubble covering his jaw. Once a rising star in military tactics, he'd been discharged after a controversial decision led to civilian casualties. But desperate times called for desperate measures, and his unorthodox thinking had earned him a reluctant place on the team. The colonel's right, Vega admitted. We need more than just a way to spot them. We need a weapon. As if on cue, a new voice piped up. What if we could turn their own tech against them? The source was Zoe Taylor, a 17-year-old prodigy who'd been recruited after hacking into military databases, searching for the truth about the invasion. Her fingers flew across a touchscreen as she spoke. Look at this, she said, projecting her findings. The energy signature of their ships. It's not just bending light. It's warping the fabric of space-time itself. But to do that, they'd need an insane amount of power. Sarah's eyes widened as she caught on. And to generate that power, they'd need fuel, Zoe finished. Exotic matter, probably. But what if that fuel has a unique signature? Something we could track. The room erupted in a flurry of activity as scientists and analysts pored over the data. Sarah found herself at the center of a storm of ideas, each more outlandish than the last. But as the hours ticked by, a plan began to take shape. We need samples, she announced finally. If the Pyrox ships are leaving traces of their fuel in the upper atmosphere, we might be able to synthesize it, or at least create a detector. Colonel Harper snorted. Great, so we just need to nip up to the edge of space and scoop up some alien gas. Any volunteers? To everyone's surprise, General Vega stepped forward. I'll do it. I'm trained in high-altitude jumps. If we can modify a U-2 spy plane, I can get up there. The next 48 hours were a blur of preparations. As Vega's team readied the aircraft, Sarah and Zoe worked tirelessly to create a collection device that could withstand the extreme conditions of the upper atmosphere. Finally, the moment of truth arrived. Sarah stood on the tarmac, squinting against the pre-dawn light as Vega climbed into the cockpit of the modified U-2. Remember, Sarah said through the comlink, you'll only have a few seconds in the target zone. The collection device will activate automatically, but you need to fly through the densest part of the aurora. Copy that, Doc, Vega replied, her voice tense but determined. Let's go fishing for some alien juice. As the plane took off, disappearing into the eerie glow that still dominated the sky, Sarah felt her heart racing. So much was riding on this mission. If they failed, humanity would be going into the fight blind. Hours crawled by. The team huddled around monitors, watching Vega's vitals and the plane's telemetry. As the U-2 reached the edge of the stratosphere, alarms suddenly blared. We got company, Zoe shouted, pointing to a radar screen. 2 bogies, coming in fast. Sarah's blood ran cold. Somehow, the Pyrox had detected the mission. General, abort. She cried into the comm. Get out of there. But Vega's response was calm. Negative. We won't get another shot at this. Initiating collection sequence. The next few minutes were the longest of Sarah's life. On the screens, they watched as Vega's plane danced through the aurora, evading streaks of alien energy weapons. The collection device's indicators flickered, slowly filling as it gathered particles. Come on, Sarah muttered, her nails digging into her palms. Just as the device reached 100%, a blast rocked the U-2. Vega's voice came through, strained but alive. Package secured. But I'm losing altitude fast. Prepare for emergency landing. The team rushed to the rendezvous point, a remote stretch of desert. They arrived just in time to see the U-2 come in hot, its wings nearly sheared off. It hit the ground hard, skidding for what seemed like miles before finally coming to a stop in a cloud of dust and debris. Sarah's heart was in her throat as they approached the wreckage. But then, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, General Vega emerged, clutching the collection device. "Next time," she coughed, handing the precious cargo to Sarah. "Let's send a drone." Back at the facility, the analysis began immediately. Sarah and her team worked around the clock, breaking down the collected particles and comparing them to known elements. It was Zoe who made the breakthrough. "Holy shit," she breathed, staring at her screen. "You guys need to see this." The team gathered around as she pulled up her findings. The particles. They're not just exotic matter. They're alive. Alive? Colonel Harper scoffed. "What, like some kind of space plankton?" "More like a virus," Zoe explained. "But not like anything we've seen before. It's rewriting its own genetic code in real time, adapting to our atmosphere." Sarah's mind raced with the implications. That's how they're able to manipulate space-time. They're not using technology as we understand it. They're using engineered life forms. The revelation sent shockwaves through the team. It was a paradigm shift that changed everything they thought they knew about the Pyrox. "So how do we fight living ships?" General Vega asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Sarah's eyes lit up with an idea. "The same way we fight any virus. We create an antibody." For the first time since the invasion began, a genuine sense of hope filled the room. They had a direction, a potential weakness to exploit, but their celebration was short-lived. Alarms blared throughout the facility. On the main screen, satellite imagery showed a Pyrox ship descending through the atmosphere, heading straight for a major city. "They're starting early," Harper growled. "So much for 30 days. As the team scrambled to respond to this new threat, Sarah felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on her. They had a lead, a whisper of hope in the darkness. But would it be enough? And could they develop a weapon in time to save millions of lives? The race against time had begun in earnest. Humanity's future hung by a thread, and that thread was a microscopic alien particle captured at the edge of space. The whispers of hope were there, but the coming storm threatened to drown them out entirely. Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenges ahead. "All right, team," she said, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. "Let's save the world." Forged in fire. The sky over Rio de Janeiro burned. Pyrox ships, now visible to the naked eye, loomed like obsidian monoliths above the city. Beams of searing energy lanced down, turning the iconic Christ, the Redeemer statue, into molten slag. Copacabana Beach became a stretch of glass, the intense heat fusing sand into a mirror-smooth surface. In the underground facility, now grimly dubbed the bunker by its inhabitants, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the destruction unfold on multiple screens. Each display showed a different city under siege. New Delhi, Cairo, Sydney. The Pyrox had abandoned their ultimatum, opting instead for a scorched earth policy. "They're targeting cultural landmarks," Colonel Harper observed, his voice tight, "trying to break our spirit along with our infrastructure." General Vega nodded grimly. "Classic psychological warfare. But why start with smaller nations? Why not hit the major military powers first?" Zoe, her young face pale with fatigue and stress, spoke up from her workstation. "It's not random. Look at the pattern." She pulled up a global map highlighting the attacked areas. "They're targeting regions with the highest biodiversity: rainforests, coral reefs, grasslands." Sarah's eyes widened as the realization hit her. They're not just after our resources. They're cataloging our biosphere. Earth is one giant petri dish to them. The implications were staggering. The Pyrox weren't just invaders. They were collectors, possibly even cultivators. Earth's rich tapestry of life was their real target. "How's that antibody coming, Doc?" Harper asked, breaking the stunned silence that had fallen over the room. Sarah ran a hand through her disheveled hair. "We're close. The engineered virus powering their ships is incredibly complex. It's not just adapting to our atmosphere, it's learning from it. Every second it spends here, it becomes more integrated with Earth's biosphere. That's why they're attacking biodiversity hotspots, Zoe interjected. They're accelerating the process, exposing their tech to as many different life forms as possible. Vega leaned over the central holographic display, her face illuminated by the glow of burning cities. We need a weapon, and we need it now. What's the ETA on something deployable? Sarah hesitated. We have a prototype, but it's unstable. We haven't had time to test it properly. Time's a luxury we don't have, Harper growled. What's the worst that could happen if we use it? The scientist in Sarah wanted to list a dozen potential catastrophic outcomes, but she bit her tongue. Best case, it disrupts their biotech, grounding their ships. Worst case, it has no effect, or, Vega prompted, or it interacts with Earth's biosphere in ways we can't predict. Global pandemic, rapid mutations, ecosystem collapse. Take your pick. A heavy silence fell over the room. The weight of the decision pressed down on all of them. Finally, Harper spoke. I'll do it. I'll deploy the prototype. All eyes turned to the grizzled colonel. Jack, no. Vega started, but he cut her off. Miranda, we both know I'm the expendable one here. If something goes wrong, better it's me than one of our actually valuable assets. Before anyone could argue further, alarms blared throughout the bunker. Zoe's fingers flew across her keyboard. We've got incoming. Multiple Pyrox ships on approach. They found us. Chaos erupted as the facility's personnel scrambled to defensive positions. Sarah locked eyes with Harper. Prep the prototype, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. I'm coming with you. Together, they raced to the lab where the experimental weapon waited. It was a sleek, almost organic-looking device, pulsing with an inner light that mirrored the alien aurora. As Sarah began the activation sequence, the bunker shook with the first impacts of the Pyrox attack. Dust rained from the ceiling, and the lights flickered ominously. You sure about this, Doc? Harper asked as he strapped the device to his chest. Sarah met his gaze, seeing the fear hidden behind his gruff exterior. No, she admitted, but it's the only shot we've got. The prototype hummed to life, its glow intensifying. Harper winced, a sheen of sweat breaking out on his forehead. You okay? Sarah asked, concerned. He nodded tightly. Feels like my blood's on fire. Let's do this before I change my mind. They made their way to the surface, emerging into a hellscape. The sky boiled with alien ships, their energy weapons carving trenches in the earth. Defense forces fought back with conventional weapons, but it was like trying to stop a tsunami with a sandcastle. Harper turned to Sarah, his eyes wild with pain and determination. Get clear. I'll draw their fire. Before she could protest, he was gone, sprinting towards the nearest Pyrox ship. Sarah watched in horror and awe as he dodged energy blasts, the prototype on his chest glowing brighter with each step. Suddenly, Harper stumbled, falling to his knees. The glow from the prototype had engulfed his entire body now. He threw his head back and screamed, a sound of agony and defiance that cut through the chaos of battle. And then everything changed. A shockwave of energy burst from Harper's body, rippling outward in a dome of shimmering light. It washed over the Pyrox ships, and for a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, they began to fall from the sky. Sarah's elation was short-lived. The energy wave didn't stop with the alien ships. It continued to spread, passing through humans, plants, and animals alike. Wherever it touched, change followed. Soldiers on the battlefield suddenly found themselves moving with inhuman speed and strength. Plants grew at an accelerated rate, vines and roots wrapping around fallen Pyrox ships. Even the very air seemed charged with new potential. In the distance, Sarah saw Harper's body dissolve into motes of light, merging with the energy wave he had unleashed. Tears streamed down her face, tears of grief, of awe, and of fear for what they had set in motion. She staggered back to the bunker, her mind reeling. Inside, she found barely controlled chaos. Vega was barking orders, coordinating a global response to the prototype's effects. Zoe sat at her station, her eyes wide as she processed incoming data. "What have we done?" Sarah whispered. Zoe looked up, her expression a mix of terror and excitement. "We've changed everything," she said. "The prototype, it didn't just attack the Pyrox biotech. It's rewriting the DNA of every living thing on Earth. We're evolving." On screens around the room, reports flooded in from around the world. The Pyrox invasion had been halted, their ships grounded or destroyed. But in its wake, a new crisis was unfolding. Humans and animals were developing new abilities, plants were growing to enormous sizes, and the very fabric of the biosphere was shifting beneath their feet. "We wanted a weapon," Vega said, her voice hollow. "We got a revolution instead." As the implications sank in, Sarah realized that this was only the beginning. They had survived the Pyrox invasion, but the real challenge lay ahead. Humanity would have to navigate a world irrevocably changed by their desperate gambit. The fire of invasion had forged them anew, for better or worse. Now they would have to face the consequences of playing God with the very building blocks of life. Sarah squared her shoulders, ready to face whatever came next. "All right," she said, her voice carrying a new weight of responsibility. "Let's see what kind of world we've created." The human storm. 3 months after the deployment of the prototype weapon, Earth was a world transformed. The Pyrox threat had been neutralized, their ships reduced to inert husks scattered across the globe. But the price of victory was beyond anything humanity could have imagined. Dr. Sarah Chen stood atop a skyscraper in what was once New York City, surveying the alien landscape below. Central Park had become a dense, phosphorescent jungle, its trees towering hundreds of feet into the air. Bioluminescent vines wrapped around buildings, their gentle pulsing creating a hypnotic light show at night. "Beautiful and terrifying, isn't it?" General Vega's voice came from behind her. The once stern military leader now sported iridescent scales along her arms, a side effect of the rapidly evolving human genome. Sarah nodded, her own transformation evident in the slight glow of her skin. "We opened Pandora's box, Miranda. The evolution isn't stopping. Every day brings new changes, new abilities, and new dangers." As if on cue, a flock of what appeared to be pterodactyls, but with feathers that shimmered like oil on water, soared past the building. Evolution had not just accelerated, it had begun to repeat and remix Earth's entire genetic history. "The Pyrox are regrouping," Vega said, her tone grim. "Our long-range sensors show their main fleet approaching. They'll be here within the month." Sarah's heart sank. They had won the battle, but not the war. How many ships? Thousands. Far more than what we faced before. "They're not coming to collect anymore, Sarah. They're coming to exterminate." The weight of this news pressed down on Sarah like a physical force. She thought of Colonel Harper, of his sacrifice. Had it all been for nothing? "We need a new plan," she said finally. "Something they won't expect." Vega's scales rippled, a sign of agitation Sarah had learned to recognize. What could possibly surprise them now? "We've turned our planet into a genetic free-for-all." A spark of an idea flared in Sarah's mind. Maybe that's exactly what we need to use against them. Back in the bunker, now a sprawling underground complex that hummed with both technology and organic life, Sarah convened an emergency meeting. So, her body now able to interface directly with computer systems, projected a holographic display of Earth and the approaching Pyrox fleet. "We've all seen what the prototype did to Earth's biosphere," Sarah began. "But we've been so focused on the physical changes that we've overlooked something crucial." She nodded to Zoe, who altered the display. Now it showed a complex web of energy patterns crisscrossing the globe. "This is a representation of Earth's psychic energy field," Sarah explained. "It's always been there, but the prototype amplified it exponentially. Every living thing on the planet is now connected on a level we're only beginning to understand." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. It was Vega who finally spoke up. "Are you suggesting we use this psychic network as a weapon?" Sarah nodded. "Not just a weapon. A shield, a communicator, and a unifying force. If we can learn to harness it, to sync the collective will of every evolved creature on Earth, we could create a psychic shockwave powerful enough to repel the Pyrox fleet." Zoe finished, her eyes wide with excitement. The next weeks were a flurry of activity. Sarah and her team worked tirelessly to develop a way to tap into and direct the global psychic field. They set up amplifiers around the world, some technological, others organic growths cultivated for this specific purpose. But as the day of the Pyrox arrival drew near, they hit a snag. "The field is too chaotic," Zoe reported, frustration evident in her voice. "We can tap into it, but we can't control it. It's like trying to direct a hurricane with a fan." Sarah stared at the readings, her mind racing. "We're thinking about this all wrong," she said slowly. "We can't control it. We need to become part of it." Her words sparked a new approach. Instead of trying to harness the psychic energy like a tool, they would synchronize with it, becoming conductors for its power. The plan was risky, with a high chance of burning out the minds of those who attempted it. Volunteers were called for, and the response was overwhelming. Humans and evolved animals alike stepped forward, ready to risk everything to defend their transformed world. As the Pyrox fleet entered the solar system, Sarah found herself standing in a vast chamber deep underground. Surrounding her were thousands of volunteers, each connected to the amplifier network. "Remember," she addressed the crowd, her voice carrying an unnatural resonance, "we're not fighting with our bodies or our weapons. We're fighting with our will, our spirit, our very essence. Feel the connection to every living thing on Earth. We are all one in this moment." The chamber hummed with energy as the volunteers began to synchronize. Sarah felt her consciousness expand, touching minds across the globe. She sensed the determination of a pride of telepathic lions in Africa, the ancient wisdom of colossal sequoias in California, the fierce protectiveness of giant cephalopods guarding the coastlines. Above, the Pyrox fleet darkened the skies, their weapons powering up for a planet-wide assault. The moment of truth had arrived. Sarah took a deep breath and opened herself fully to the psychic storm. "Now," she cried, her voice echoing in millions of minds simultaneously. The response was beyond anything they had imagined. A visible wave of energy burst from the Earth's surface, a swirling maelstrom of colors that defied description. It roared upwards, engulfing the Pyrox ships in its embrace. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the two forces clashed. The cold, implacable will of the Pyrox against the wild, vibrant storm of Earth's unified biosphere. Then, impossibly, the Pyrox ships began to crumble. Their biomechanical hulls, once impervious to conventional weapons, buckled under the onslaught of pure psychic energy. Cracks spread across their surfaces, leaking blinding light. In the chamber, Sarah felt the strain of channeling such immense power. Blood trickled from her nose, and she could sense others around her faltering. But she also felt a surge of triumph and defiance rising from every corner of the planet. With a final, titanic effort, the psychic storm redoubled its fury. The Pyrox fleet, once so terrifying in its scale and power, disintegrated. Ships exploded in silent bursts of light, raining debris across the upper atmosphere in a perverse meteor shower. As the last Pyrox vessel winked out of existence, the psychic storm gradually subsided. Sarah found herself on her knees, gasping for breath. Around her, other volunteers were in similar states of exhaustion, but their faces shone with a mixture of disbelief and elation. They had done it. Earth had survived. In the days that followed, as the world began to process its miraculous victory, Sarah stood once again atop the New York skyscraper. The city below was changed, as was every corner of the planet, but it was still Earth, still home. Vega joined her, looking out at the horizon, where debris from the Pyrox fleet still burned up in the atmosphere, creating spectacular light shows. "What now?" the general asked softly. Sarah considered the question. The threat was gone, but Earth would never be the same. They were a new species now, standing on the threshold of uncharted evolutionary territory. Now, Sarah replied, a smile tugging at her lips. We explore. We learn. We become what we were always meant to be. As if in response, a flock of the feathered pterodactyls soared past, their calls a haunting melody on the wind. Earth had been forged anew in the fires of invasion, tempered by the human storm of will and spirit. The future was uncertain, but for the first time since the Pyrox arrived, it was filled with hope. Inferno's end. 1 year after the defeat of the Pyrox fleet, Earth pulsed with new life and possibility. The transformed planet had become a beacon in the cosmos, its unique blend of technology and evolved biology drawing the attention of other spacefaring races. Some came in peace, seeking to learn and trade. Others, hearing of Earth's victory over the dreaded Pyrox, came to test their mettle against this emerging power. Dr. Sarah Chen, now head of the newly formed Terrestrial Evolution Council, stood in a chamber deep within Cheyenne Mountain. The room hummed with a combination of advanced technology and organic components, a physical representation of humanity's new hybrid nature. The diplomatic envoy from the Galactic Consortium will be arriving within the hour, General Vega reported, her iridescent scales shimmering under the bioluminescent lights. This could be our chance to finally gain recognition on the interstellar stage. Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. And the Skirth battle fleet. Zoe's voice came from everywhere and nowhere, her consciousness now fully integrated with Earth's global network. Still holding position just beyond Mars' orbit, they're waiting to see how the consortium meeting goes before making their move. The situation was delicate. Earth's victory over the Pyrox had upset the balance of power in their sector of the galaxy. Some races sought alliance, others wanted to subjugate the upstart planet before it could become a real threat. The Galactic Consortium offered a potential middle ground. Membership would provide protection and opportunities, but at the cost of some autonomy. As Sarah pondered their options, an alarm blared through the complex. Holographic displays sprang to life, showing a massive energy surge emanating from the debris field of the defeated Pyrox fleet. What the hell? Vega muttered, her scales rippling with agitation. Sarah's blood ran cold as she recognized the energy signature. It's their biotech. It's reactivating. The screen showed Pyrox ship fragments beginning to move, coalescing like mercury into a singular, monstrous form. It was as if all the defeated vessels were combining into one gargantuan entity. How is this possible? Sarah demanded, her mind racing. We destroy them. Zoe's disembodied voice was tinged with awe and fear. It's evolution, Sarah. Just like us, their technology adapted. We didn't kill it. We forced it to change. The implications were staggering. The Pyrox hadn't been defeated. They had been reborn, twisted into something new and terrifying by the very force Earth had used against them. As they watched, the colossal Pyrox entity began to move towards Earth, its surface roiling with malevolent energy. We need to evacuate, Vega said, already moving towards the command console. Get as many people off-world as we can. But Sarah stood frozen, her enhanced mind processing possibilities at lightning speed. No, she said softly, then with more conviction. No, we can't run. This is our home. We've changed it, evolved it. We need to take responsibility. What are you suggesting? Vega asked, her hand hovering over the evacuation alert. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the connection to Earth's psychic network thrumming through her being. We use the planet itself, not just as a weapon, but as a resonance chamber. We've been treating our evolution and Earth's as separate things, but we're one system now, one organism. Understanding dawned in Vega's eyes. You want to weaponize the entire planet. Not weaponize, Sarah corrected. Harmonize. The Pyrox entity is massive, but it's a corruption of natural law. If we can align ourselves perfectly with Earth's resonant frequency, We could create a counter-vibration powerful enough to tear it apart. Zoe finished, excitement evident in her tone. The plan was audacious, bordering on insane. It would require every evolved being on the planet to synchronize not just with each other, but with the fundamental frequency of Earth itself. The slightest misalignment could tear the planet apart instead of saving it. As the Pyrox monstrosity entered Earth's atmosphere, casting an eclipse-like shadow over entire continents, Sarah put out the call. Through the global psychic network, she reached out to every mind on the planet, human, animal, and even plant. This is our moment. Her thoughts resonated across the world. Everything we've become, everything we've endured, has led to this. Feel the pulse of the Earth beneath you, the rhythm of its core. Match it. Become one with it. We are the planet's immune system, and it's time to fight off this infection once and for all. Around the globe, billions of minds focused as one. In the Amazon, colossal trees swayed in unison, their roots pulsing with energy. In the depths of the oceans, telepathic whales sang a song of defiance. In cities and villages, humans and their evolved animal companions joined in a psychic chorus unlike anything the universe had ever seen. Sarah felt the power building, a crescendo of will and energy that made their previous efforts seem like a whisper in comparison. The very air began to shimmer, reality itself wavering under the strain of so much focused intent. The Pyrox entity, sensing the threat, lashed out. Tentacles of destructive energy whipped down from the sky, carving chasms in the Earth's surface. But for every wound inflicted, the unified consciousness of the planet knit itself back together, growing stronger. In orbit, the watching alien fleets recoiled in a mixture of awe and terror. They were witnessing something unprecedented, an entire world acting as a single living weapon. As the power reached its peak, Sarah felt herself slipping away, her individual consciousness subsumed by the greater whole. In that moment, she understood everything. The true nature of the Pyrox, the cosmic dance of evolution, the destiny of Earth and its children. With a final surge of will, the unified Earth released its power. A shockwave of pure resonant energy burst from the planet's core, rippling outward through the crust, the oceans, the atmosphere. It struck the Pyrox entity with the force of a supernova, but focused to a razor's edge. The monstrous creation hung in the air for a moment, vibrating at a frequency visible to the naked eye. Then, with a silent scream felt in the minds of all, it shattered. The breakdown cascaded, each fragment dissolving into smaller and smaller pieces until nothing remained but stardust glittering in the atmosphere. As the energy dissipated, Sarah found herself back in her own body, gasping for air. Around the world, billions of others were coming back to themselves, forever changed by the experience of true unity. In the aftermath, as the dust settled and the skies cleared, Earth found itself in a new position. The watching alien fleets, witness to the planet's incredible defense, sent messages of peace and recognition. The Galactic Consortium, awed by the display, offered immediate membership with full rights and privileges. Sarah stood once again atop the New York skyscraper, now entwined with bioluminescent vines and hosting nests of friendly mini-dragons. The sky above was filled with the glittering remnants of the Pyrox entity, a reminder of the threat they had faced and the price of victory. Vega joined her, looking out at the transformed city. "So, Doctor," she said with a hint of her old military brusqueness, "what's the next crisis we need to prepare for?" Sarah smiled, feeling the gentle pulse of the global psychic network, a comforting reminder of their shared journey and shared destiny. "Oh, I think crisis management is in our DNA now," she replied. "But maybe it's time we focused on something else. Exploration, diplomacy, finding our place in a very big, very strange universe." As if in agreement, a flock of iridescent birds took flight from a nearby rooftop garden, their wings catching the light of a sun rising on a new era. The inferno that had forged them was finally extinguished, but the flame of human potential burned brighter than ever. Earth, once a small blue marble in the cosmic ocean, had become a shining beacon of life's potential to adapt, evolve, and transcend. Whatever challenges lay ahead, humanity, in all its new and wondrous forms, would face them together as one with their living world. The end was just the beginning.